Hi there! Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I thought I would talk about something that I think can be a bit controversial, maybe not really, but something that's like essential for creatives or people who want to work on their creative and problem solving skills, and that is the importance of boredom. So if you're interested in that, just keep on watching. Okay, I just want to put a quick disclaimer on here first. You might not need this disclaimer, but others may well need it, so I'm just going to put it here. When I talk about boredom in this context, I'm just going to talk about more of like quick spur of the moments instances of boredom or irregular spurts of boredom. If you are somebody who experiences a general sense of apathy or prolonged boredom, or um, th- you're just not really finding the joys of life right now, and that's on a really very consistent basis, I would encourage you to talk to a mental health professional or your doctor, just because that might be a symptom of a serious mental health issue. When I talk about boredom in this context, I'm talking about the kinds of boredom that you experience like as a child when you don't know what to do next, or even as an adult if you're just home in the house and you're like or even further than that, if you're bored at work and you're questioning your decision making. That's a separate thing altogether. If you're feeling compulsory boredom or boredom like I described before, where it's more of a nagging apathy to things, please seek medical help. Yay. I mean, you can keep watching this video if you want, but I just thought I would make a distinction between the two. So now that that's all the way, let's talk about boredom. I have been thinking about this for quite some time now. When I searched up articles for this project or for this video, a lot of the articles I read were articles from about 4 years ago, like 2020. And I think it's a bit obvious why people were so interested in boredom during that time. Many of us were inside and did not have options to leave the home, and there's so many only so many things you can do inside. So I think that's when people started really examining boredom, the good and the bad of it, I guess. Being bored can be an uncomfortable experience. Sometimes with boredom comes feelings of frustration. I think it's important to use boredom productively and still try to incorporate it in our day-to-day lives. I think we live in an age right now where very few people sit in boredom and literally sit and do nothing. That can easily translate to something like, instead of scrolling on your phone for hours on end, or playing YouTube videos or podcasts in the backgrounds during chores, or just checking Instagram before bed and things like that. All of that can contribute to our diminishing dead time, or just like time where we don't have to do anything. I think this is especially apparent too for younger folks. And I'm going to talk about this for a minute. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm an old person yelling at the sky, as D'Angelo Wallace puts it in his last video I watched of him. But this is something that I think is an unintended side effect of raising children with technology, is the fact that people don't know how to sit still, or they don't know how to sit in boredom anymore. Back in my day, back in my day when we didn't really have smartphones as children, we had moments where our parents would literally just tell us to, like, if we were bored and complain to them, they would just tell us to go fix it or do something about it or do whatever. Some of us maybe have had more actively involved parents that had games planned and things like that, but that's not, I don't think that's a regular thing for a lot of folks. Yeah. So in boredom, we can learn a lot about ourselves and also learn things like problem solving and other sorts of skills. I'm just going to talk about myself and my family real quick. So whenever I was bored and resorted to solo play, a lot of times, like, I would fill my cup or use up that time by like drawing pictures or reading books or doing very quiet activities like that, that also engaged in a little bit more creative pursuits like that, whereas my siblings would do different things. So if they were bored and they wanted to act out some sort of play to alleviate their boredom, my sister would do a lot of role-playing type scenarios. So her default would be to play store or play church sermons, pretend like she was a priest or whatever. She would pretend she worked at McDonald's. She played with cashiers, a lot of transactional things, a lot of things that embodied a role playing type of scenario. And I think that feeds into her personality today, even as an adult, just because of what hobbies she tends to does. She likes to go on the VR chat and kind of have a secondary life on there and do games that would cause you to role play certain scenarios and things like that. So that's something that she still enjoys today as an adult. Likewise for myself, I like reading and art and all this other kind of stuff. So that carries with me into adulthood. And then likewise my brother. So for him, like when he was bored, he was a bit more of a daredevil and he would like climb things or engage in some sort of like physical activity. Sometimes it would be a little bit more imaginative role play setting, like if he was like swinging a sword around and like beating up bad guys or whatever. But a lot of times it involves some sort of physicality. It would involve balance beam type scenarios or climbing things or doing flips, and that sort of athleticism has carried over with him into adulthood too. And I think that's an important part of figuring out who you are, your likes and dislikes, like sitting in yourself and seeing what you naturally gravitate to, or like what gives you your spark, I guess, as a young person or as a child. Now I must preface that I'm not a parent, so I don't know how people choose to parent their kids, and I'm sure it's not the extreme scenario that I have in my head. But I often wonder if kids are getting this sort of same experience nowadays where they can easily alleviate their boredom with YouTube videos and iPads and things like that. I don't know if they're necessarily given these sorts of opportunities for self-exploration, or they can do that as a youngin and really help form their identity in that sort of way, so that they could subconsciously discover themselves in the same way that I did and my siblings did at the same time. Because when you have this sort of entertainment at your fingertips constantly, there is no need to be bored. And so if you're feeling boredom and you're not used to that feeling, sometimes it can be kind of jarring to get like sit with your own thoughts, I guess. And I joke about that now as an adult too. Like I think I've gotten, not so much now, but a few years ago I gotten way too dependent on technology, and sometimes I would be very uncomfortable if left alone with my thoughts for too long. And so in order to like curb that, I would just like drown them out with additional noise and noise and noise. What I'm saying is that we should try not to do that as much, especially if children, adults, whoever, are still trying to discover themselves, be creative, and try to engage in better problem solving skills. So the kind of boredom I was just talking about recently, or just now, has more to do with this idea of being transient boredom, which is more of like a day-to-day maybe thing or a momentary thing. Chronic boredom is different than the trigger warning I gave at the beginning of this video, where it's something where you're dissatisfied with the current living situation or condition, and that might encourage you to do some deeper introspective things to see if you're really feeling fulfilled or happy in a certain job situation or with your life choices, I guess. And these sorts of things could be remedied by you're sitting down with yourself and being honest and trying to talk about like your goals in life or whatever, and see if you are getting your emotional and cognitive needs fulfilled. This could also be something that like could spark a change in lifestyle or a move, right, to a different city, or maybe ending certain relationships or starting a new relationship. Several things. The transient boredom is more so talking about like doing activity as a resolution, whereas with the chronic boredom, that might involve bigger lifestyle changes that take a while to plan and prepare and do. So I just wanted to put this little distinction because I don't think I did that in the beginning. I also kind of want to break down this like stereotype that like if you're bored, that means you're being lazy and unproductive, when I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that's more of our inner mind talking to us and doing a check-in about what's going on or how we're feeling emotionally. And I think you can really, really actually increase your productivity if you were to accept boredom when it comes and then figure out like where it's coming from and use that as opportunities to grow. So here are some like, I found this article online and I'll post in the link of this video too. I'll post it in the description of this video as well. But it's 6 surprising benefits of boredom, like 6 positives of being bored. The first one we kind of talked about, which is enhance creativity. And according to this article, boredom can force your mind to wander and explore new ideas. When you're not focused on specific tasks, your brain has the opportunity to come up with innovative solutions or creative projects. This mental wandering can allow you to connect different ideas in new and interesting ways. This is so true, especially if you write. I noticed that, like, if I'm really stuck on something, I actually tend to spiral if I continue to push myself to work on it. And the moment I step away and do something like dishes or take a shower or, tidy up the house, that like I can just try to mellow out and like resolve myself, and like that letting giving my mind like a taskless moment where I can just be like la 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 la, actually really helps me find my way back a lot of times to my problems I'm having with writing or making social media posts or whatever. It really does help me generate new ideas sometimes. So I would encourage other people to try to put down that podcast so that you can give your mind the space to play on its own. This other one we've touched on already, but it's increased self awareness. Periods of boredom can offer opportunities for introspection. With fewer external distractions, you can reflect on your personal goals, desires, and behaviors. This can lead to a better understanding of who you are and what you truly want, helping you make more informed decisions about your life. This one could be a little bit scary for folks because I notice a lot of people do not like to do self reflection. And that has become more and more apparent as our current world events keep ensuing. And yeah. Uh, so so this one might be a bit of a challenge for folks, but I promise it's worth it. You'll end up being happier. It makes no sense to just kind of go through life on this autopilot and build up this internal resentment that you eventually take out on yourself and others. So periods of self-reflection are great, where you can just sit, maybe take a deep breath and let your mind giggle and wonder, and eventually it will come to light. That you could also do this through things like meditation as well. Yeah, I would encourage a lot of people to just really sit with themselves and figure that out. Number 3, when you're bored, you have an opportunity for new interests and passions. Feeling bored can be a sign that your current activities aren't fulfilling you, and that this can prompt you to explore new pursuits that spark excitement and joy. My husband is like the king of this. So he will take on like whole new app building projects when he's bored. He he will make an app or tailor an app on his phone that's kind of tailored more towards board games, I noticed, especially since like a lot of board games I just don't want to play with him because they're just not my thing. And he will come up with a companion app to help play with the board game, which sounds really sad, but it's not. I promise. They're really cool. He has done an app before about like Liar's Dice from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. And had, or not, it's not Liar's Dice. It's like something like it. I don't know. I think it's from The Witcher. I don't know. I don't watch that show, but if you've seen The Witcher, it's the dice game from that franchise. He's made an app for that. He's also working on an app companion where it's like to help him play Star Wars X-Wings. So that's kind of like a game where you need two people because it's a 1v1 challenge and it's just like the little Star Wars ships attacking each other. I don't really like that game, but it's his like favorite thing in the world. So he has made apps to try to fill that need, and he has made an app for him to play X-Wing, and so he's building it himself and installing the rules and things like that. So yeah, that's my husband. He's the king of that kind of thing. Douglas is an amazing problem solver. So like his apps are an issue of he sees like, hey, I'm bored. I want to play this game. Nobody wants to play with me. So I'm going to make a computer play with me. Genius. Okay, number 4, improved mental health. Taking breaks from a constant state of busyness can allow your mind to rest, reduce feelings of stress and overload. This can help maintain a mental balance and prevent burnout. I think it's so common in like I'm from US, so I'm speaking about like my culture as an American, but I think we have such an insane productivity culture here in the US. Whereas if you're not performing at your tip top best, then you are slacking, and that is a character flaw. And that's just not true at all. We pride ourselves in being super busy. Like, I know some people that are like, if you aren't going to 3 different exercise classes and working overtime and having a side business or side hustle and popping out 3 babies and taking your babies to all their extracurricular activities, and you're not doing life right. And I'm like, girl, I know those are eye bags under your concealer. You are not fooling me. So, needless to say, I don't really participate in that sort of culture. I have embraced my soft life, girl. I am so happy when it comes to just like my creature comforts. I'm not going to be the one to try to schedule every waking minute of my life. That's just not what I'm going to do. I don't think we're designed for that biologically. Like, not we as just like a gender thing, but I mean we as humans. Like, I think about other animals out in nature, and they definitely give themselves periods to rest. You know, they go hunting or whatever, but they're not doing it every second of the day. So I like to say that I myself am like a bear, and there are definitely times where I need hibernation, and that's okay. That's who I am. So if you're like me, feel validated. If you're not, and you want to schedule that stuff, you can. But I just want you to know that like you are a candle burning, and eventually if you're going to run out of wax if you keep pushing yourself over the limit. So sitting there and doing nothing after having a lifetime of busyness might just make you take a nap, and that's okay too. Number 5, motivation for goal reassessment. Boredom can prompt you to think about your current situation and goals. This can lead you to make changes that align more closely with your personal aspirations and values, setting the stage for more satisfying and meaningful connections. So, what I said earlier about how chronic boredom can force you to reevaluate your life and figure out what's working for you and what's not, and then what can you change about what's not working for you. Sometimes there's certain things that you just can't change about the world, that might result in some sort of feeling of discomfort or unhappiness. I watch the news, and let me tell you, a lot of that brings me a lot of discomfort. Some of that stuff's beyond my control. Some things are within my control, so I try to focus on those. Yeah, just trying to figure out like what my body is trying to tell me about why I feel discomfort in this moment. Why am I feeling frustrated? Why am I feeling unease? Why am I feeling disinterested in things? And that way you can assess and, you know, get things back on the right track. And the last one we kind of talked about already, but or hinted at, so I'm just going to go through this quickly. Number 6, additional problem solving skills. When your mind is more relaxed, it can approach problems from new angles and develop better strategies for overcoming challenges. You know what's funny? It's like when I was a kid and I was stuck on something, I would literally hang upside down from the edge of the couch or my bed or something and literally just stare at the abyss for a couple of minutes and let the blood rush into my head. And then I would stand back up again and just let my body try to readjust to those things. I don't think that is specifically what you should do, but that's an instance of taking a break and zoning out. I did it in a very weird 5-year-old type way. But you know, that might be like a good metaphor for you to use if you need problem solving time but you need a break. You can just say like, well, I'm just going to go hang upside down for a minute and then do that. I don't know. This article also has a list of 7 things you can do to use boredom constructively when you don't know what else to do. So I'm just going to read those for you too, just since we're here. The first thing they list is initiate a mini project. Start a small project like painting a picture or starting a new book. Small projects can occupy your mind and provide a sense of accomplishment. One thing I do for this all the time, if I can get it out, is color. I have a coloring book here in this office. In this office, this is my sunroom. This is kind of like where I go to alleviate boredom. Honestly, I have a whole room dedicated to it now that I'm realizing. This is my reading room. This is the room where I have a bunch of windows so I can just look out and stare at people or people watch or just zone out to the trees. I also have a ton of crayons and 2 coloring books. Coloring books in here where I color. This is my like pastel goth spooky type book. I like doing this. This is my catharsis for boredom. And it really helps me think more about like zone out. It's something you don't really have to put a lot of mental energy towards, but also gets me to think about contrast, form, and colors. And I don't know, it just tickles my creative brain because I feel like if you only like, because I write, right? Like that's my creative medium as an artist. I write books and short stories and things like that. So if I'm only doing that creatively, I get burnt out so fast. I need to like switch it up. So a good thing for me is to switch to visual arts. So back in the day, I used to paint. I'm trying to get back into that, but I used to paint a lot, and I would work with oil paints, and I had sketchbooks. I had black pens, and I would doodle on that too. I'm somebody who who, if I'm feeling stuck, that's like a decompression for me, switching back and forth. So those are my mini projects. And it's something that I don't have to stress over. Like, and I feel accomplished too, right? Because when you finish a page of a coloring book, you feel good. You're like, oh, yay, I did this, yay. And, but again, it's not like something that everyone's going to see and that you really, really need to work hard at, but it's something that still gives you a sense of accomplishment. It's like, I never used to, when I was a kid, I hated this idea, but now that I'm an adult, I know it's true. They always say like you're supposed to make your bed every morning because you start the day with a small accomplishment, and I do that. And let me tell, well, most days I do that, and let me tell you, it actually works. It really helps start me off with a positive mindset because I already have something checked off and it's like instantaneous almost. And it's like, yep, things like that can really help with boredom. Finding something small that you can do to feel that sense of accomplishment that isn't really pressure inducing or takes up too much time. I know when I was not in my best mental health place and we were stuck inside during 2020, I got a lot of my sense of accomplishments from playing Animal Crossing, and I devoted a lot of time towards Animal Crossing, let me tell you, and building up my town and doing all the sorts of things. But then it turned into like an unhealthy thing for me because, again, I wasn't really checking in with myself, and I was kind of like just placing my accomplishments into a virtual world instead of applying them to my real life. So that became a thing. The fun thing turned into like a dependency thing, and that wasn't great. So that's just me, like, also giving you this little caveat to make sure that, like, hey, let's just like, our mini projects are fun for this, but like, again, if you're like me, you're getting too dependent on your Animal Crossing for your self-worth, it might be time to check in again. So yeah. Their second suggestion is set personal goals. Use your idle time to reflect on your personal ambitions. Set goals to reinvigorate your enthusiasm for daily activities, which can help alleviate feelings of boredom. This sounds like more planning type thing. If you're a Virgo, you probably love this and you probably make lists all the time. The only time I really find myself making lists like this or to-do lists is if I have a big project coming up and I want to get organized, or like the beginning of the year type thing when I keep telling myself that this is going to be my year and I'm going to figure out the solution to everything and I'm going to have all these goals for myself and blah blah blah. But it might be nice every now and then to do that and check in with yourself on times that aren't just momentous occasions. So I might have to learn a thing or two about that one. Their third suggestion is something we already talked about: learning something new. Learning something new can be a fantastic way to redirect your focus and engage your brain. Look online for courses or local classes. I take local writing classes sometimes here in Chicago, but I know lots of people, like, I have a lot of friends that are learning a second, third language right now. A lot of my friends are learning Korean because we all like K-pop, so that could be something you want to do. Douglas went through this phase where he was taking some Japanese classes in Boston. He was also learning some Arabic online. It's hit or miss. My thing is if I'm going to learn a language, I'm going to learn it. So I get kind of too focused in on that. I learned Portuguese so that I could speak to his relatives and stuff. But I haven't learned another language since then. So maybe that could also be a valuable option for you, is to get on Duolingo or Lingo Deer. I heard Lingo Deer is better, but you can get on an app like that and try to learn a new language too. And it's fun and it's gamified and it tickles your brain because you feel some sort of positive reinforcement when you learn the Duolingo words and they give you a little green bird and it's like, yay. Number 4 is organize and declutter. Tackle clutter in your physical or digital space. This can be surprisingly satisfying and has the added benefit of making your environment more pleasant and functional, which can boost your mood and productivity. Let me tell you, I used to do this all the time as a young person. I would love cleaning my room, and half the time I was just going through my trinkets and just looking at my trinkets and being like, ooh, trinkets. Uh, but like, I think decluttering is such a good thing. You don't necessarily have to get rid of anything. You could just spend your time wiping stuff down. But I do think cleaning and reorganizing and decluttering things can be great, and it also like reminds you of things that you might be holding on to that you don't want to hold on to anymore, like emotionally, but also physically. Like, if I have certain clothes I haven't worn for a long time, why am I keeping it around? You know what I mean? I could donate that to a local shelter or something like that. We have donation boxes and stuff in some neighborhoods around here. So that's where Douglas and I tend to donate some of our clothes that don't fit anymore. That's primarily why we donate clothes, because shit doesn't fit anymore. But like I said, if I'm not wearing this anymore, if something doesn't speak to me anymore, then why am I holding on to it? Could be said with lots of different objects, not just clothes, but And also, like, when at the end of the day, when that's all said and done and the space feels clean again, I just feel so good. Like, I just feel like, and again, I'm not a neat freak. I'm not a minimalist. I have a lot of stuff, but it's just nice to I go through and touch everything and feel that. And I don't know, I'm just being weird, but like I enjoy that process, and I'm realizing that I haven't done that in a long time because like life is so busy. But I do like a good declutter. It's a lot of fun. Okay, number 5, meditate or practice mindfulness. Use mindfulness exercises or meditation to help you explore your thoughts, emotions, and motivations. This can help you manage boredom and improve your overall mental well-being. Yeah, it's kind of like what we hinted at earlier. I'm somebody who used to struggle with the concept of meditation. I could not do it. I could not do it, friend. The first time I meditated, I actually fell asleep. Actually, the first couple of times I did that, I just fell asleep because, again, past me was the type of person that was always go, go, go. Something had to be going on. I had to constantly be doing something, work towards something, achieve something. My early 20s were very much that. I didn't know how to really sit with myself. But that is a skill that I have worked through within this decade of my 20s. Yes, meditation's great. Again, I'm not the best at it still. There's still people who achieve Zen that, I don't think I've achieved that yet. But I've learned how to sit in my body and feel what I need to feel that discomfort and like process it physically and emotionally. So that's been great. I know we have the Headspace app on our phones, Douglas and I. We get that. I don't know if you have to pay for that. I think his work pays for it for us because Douglas has a pretty good health insurance plan. So we've done Headspace and we've done meditations through Headspace. They have a lot of different options tailored for you. There's some that just involve winding down before bed and like getting ready to sleep to help you sleep better. Some of them are like anger management. I used to do that one. There's also some that are like situational settings or like certain sounds. So I remember one I liked was like about a soap shop or something, a place that sold soap. And there's this other one I like to listen to now that like talks about Joshua Tree and this and the noises and animals or whatever in Joshua Tree. I like that one. But yeah, it's a good way to ground yourself and be in the present moment. I think a lot of times with boredom, it's kind of like we're looking for a big solution to shake things up. And in reality, like it helps to just be present in the moment. And that's where like mindfulness kind of comes in, is really taking the time to feel the carpet in your toes or feel your weight in the chair and just breathe and just exist. You know what I mean? Like you don't always have to fill the hole. Sometimes you can just exist, and that's okay too. Number 6 on here is plan your next adventure. Arrange a future vacation or a day trip to give you something to look forward to, and also to shift your focus into the possibilities ahead. I don't know if you guys are like this, but like I feel like the Pinterest people would could appreciate this, where you have like vision boards and stuff. You could do something like that too. That's aspirational. Douglas and I have actually talked about planning future vacations, like solo vacations for just us. A lot of our vacations are involved just traveling to see family, and we've both agreed that we want to do something for us here coming soon. Pre-pandemic, our vacation that I was actually planning was to Switzerland, and then obviously the pandemic happened and that didn't happen and we never went. So I use Notion. It's a fun app on the computer, and I think I've talked about this before on this channel when it came to just like business organization. I use Notion to list out all the YouTube videos I want to do, but another thing I do in Notion is actually planning for future trips. So I haven't worked on this a lot, so I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything here. I haven't worked on this a lot, but I've kind of set up outlines for us to plan a trip to different countries. Like we want to go to Japan eventually one day, so that's there. We've also talked about going to Italy and other places, so I have like little tabs for those different countries, and we've kind of talked about things we want to do there, so we just kind of like dump them in there, and that's a good start. It's like something that fun that you can work on collectively together, or if you want to take a solo trip, like that's cool too. I know there's also some places here domestically in the US that we'd like to go to, like New Orleans. So yeah, that's actually wonderful advice, and I feel like you can incorporate things like Pinterest in there too if you want to do something like that. The last one they suggest, number 7, is volunteer your time. Find opportunities to volunteer your time, whether locally or online. Helping others can provide a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose, making your downtime feel more meaningful. This. It's been a while actually since I volunteered at anything. So when I lived in Boston, I used to volunteer at Big Sisters of Boston. And then I've done a lot of volunteer work before that, but like I have done volunteer work probably since high school, depending on different places where I've lived, here in the US and other places. And I don't know, it's not like I was like, oh, I'm gonna like do this and save the world and do blah blah blah. Like that wasn't necessarily the motivation for it all the time. A lot of the times it was like, well, I'm like living here and I'm having a good time and like I'm benefiting from where I live, and so I want to give back a little bit. So that's when I would find those opportunities. We moved to Chicago about a year ago, and I haven't done a volunteer work in like a year or two. So I've been I literally had this conversation with Douglas yesterday about wanting to find some volunteer work that felt a little bit more meaningful. So that's something that I plan to do on my list. And let me tell you, helping others, like as cheesy as this sounds, helping others actually does make you feel good. Even if it's just something small or something you do maybe like once a month, right? It doesn't even have to be like a huge, big dedication, but it's something that you could potentially look forward to and you can give back. And it doesn't just have to be like a Christmas holiday type scenario. Like this could be ongoing. And I don't know, it's a great way to meet new people too and make other sorts of relationships that way and be a little bit more integrated with your community as well. I think this is especially important in the world we live in right now. I think there's such a lack of community, and I think there's been a lack of community for a long time, but I've seen so much discourse online about people wanting to find community again. Volunteering is a perfect way to do so. It's fantastic. So I really encourage you guys, like if this is something you even had an inkling about doing, to just do it. It's nice. It doesn't have to be anything super strenuous, but volunteering would actually really, really help not only you, but everyone around you. So yeah. So yeah, that's the video. I hope I convinced you to crave boredom. I guess I don't know. I hope I've convinced you of the importance of being bored. Let me know if you learned anything from this video, or if you disagree, if you agree or disagree. I saw one article that was talking about how boredom can be productive, but to be careful because boredom is what like caused a lot of men to get into like manosphere content, which I don't think that's the case. I think they were fed content like that through algorithms, and then because of certain negative experiences in their lives or whatever, they gravitated to that content more and more and more, and then it turned into like a cyclical feedback loop type thing. So I don't know where they got boredom from that. But anyway, maybe doom scrolling caused that. I don't know. I read that article and I was like, I don't know if I agree with that. But anyway, I think boredom can be a good thing. I think if, like I said, if you're experiencing chronic apathy, that's another thing altogether. And maybe you should talk to someone about that, and like a professional about that. But having chronic boredom isn't necessarily the end of the world either. I think it's important to remind people that like you're going to feel discomfort or uncomfortable feelings in life in general, and it's important not to shy away from that stuff, because I would okay, so a lot of this came I was wanting to do this video for a while, but this I felt like I had to do it right now because I watched a video with D'Angelo Wallace in it, and it was about how PhD students were caused their professor to quit their job because they kept using ChatGPT and generative AI to write their assignments when getting their PhD or writing their thesis for them. It was computer science students trying to do that for I think Spanish literature professor. I'm not quite sure. But she ended up quitting her job. And one of the things she said is that a lot of these students don't want to sit in discomfort anymore to like think and analyze text and things like that. And I know I've made my opinions on generative AI known on this channel, so I don't need to go into it too much. But I do worry that, not worry, but I mull over the idea that people aren't going to put an emphasis on the process anymore, and that they're just going to want to demand a result. And I think with future generations coming up, as technology advances, they're not going to care about the process of building something like what Douglas is doing, like building an app from scratch, because they have something on their phone that could do something similar for them right away. Or they're not going to care about what I do, where I take the time to sit down and plot things out in my stories, or do whatever, because they can have an app do that for them and they can get a scary story in a matter of seconds. So there's not going to be a desire for the process anymore. And I can feel all I want about that. I can feel whatever type of way I want about that. But at the end of the day, like that's probably what it's going to be. But the downside of that, I think, for beyond my selfish motivations of why I think that's important, is that people aren't just going to want to work towards a lot of things anymore or do processes anymore, like processing your emotions or processing the information that your body is telling you about a situation, or like, why are you bored? Are you dissatisfied with this certain part of your life? Okay, well, how do you fix this? Blah blah blah. Like that whole middle process, I think, is going to become increasingly difficult for folks to do. So which is why I think we should really retrain ourselves how to be bored now, to kind of prevent that, or at least be more mindful when that sort of issue comes up in the future, because I believe it really will. And again, I don't want to sound like a cranky old person being like, kids these days don't want to work hard at anything. That is such like a grandpa thing to say. And I know, because I've heard my grandpa say that. And I do think that like technology has alleviated a lot of things that we don't need to put ourselves through anymore. Like, I don't need to go sleep outside because I have a house. That's great. You know what I mean? Like, that is wonderful for advances in quality of life. I just wonder if this is truly an advancement in the quality of life, or if this is just something new, and I don't know what the impacts will have on people moving forward. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a positive change. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. But that's why I kind of wanted to talk about boredom specifically, because I think it's a specific subsect of the process that might get lost in the next few years thanks to generative AI. Yeah. So anyway, final note. Thank you so much for listening to all my ramblings. I really appreciate you. If you like this video, feel free to like it. You can also comment down below what you think about anything I said. You can share this video with a friend or subscribe to the channel. Please, please, please. That would help me out a lot. And until next time, thanks. Bye.